Good afternoon, everybody. David Schuster here on Take Action News, produced in the studios of We Act Radio in Anacostia, Washington, D.C. President Obama has officially now begun his second term. Congress is back in session as well. It's been a busy week, but we're going to start by looking at the way the president laid out the blueprint for his second term. The president gave his inaugural address on Monday, and what a speech it was. A lot of progressives very pleased with the courage that the president showed, particularly on the very sometimes divisive and politically difficult issue of climate change. Listen to what the president said.
We will respond to the threat of climate change, knowing that the failure to do so would betray our children and future generations.
Daniel Mehrens, what did the president mean? Exactly how is the White House intending to respond?
Well, David, that's not yet clear, but the fact that he made climate change, which is, I think, sort of our legacy as our generation. I know that the commentator and analyst Chris Hayes, the host of Up with Chris Hayes, has pointed out that in 20, 30, 50, 60, 80 years, this is the only thing that future generations will judge us on, because the world will be such a dangerous and risky place to live in if we don't act right away. Now, the president has struggled with that. Obviously, he's authorized the Environmental Protection Agency to regulate carbon as it regulates many other substances. That was a major step forward. He's used sort of his executive powers in many respects to move the ball forward on climate change, but he hasn't really succeeded in passing comprehensive legislation that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions that are causing climate change. The House of Representatives, in the first 2 years of the president's of President Obama's administration, did pass a cap and trade bill that then died in the Senate. Many people believe that he did not play that well strategically, that he had the support of Lindsey Graham, and that was squandered. It's hard to know what we can expect going forward. Bill Scher, who I spoke to earlier in the week, our friendly competitor on Liberal Oasis TV, he's hoping that a carbon tax could actually be part of a Republican concession as part of a grand bargain. I think that that's a little pie in the sky, but certainly moving in that direction, increasing the sticks that we have for using dirty kinds of fuel and upping the carrots to use clean kinds is the direction we need to be going. One thing that environmentalists are going to be looking at is, will the president finally approve the Keystone Pipeline, bringing the dirtiest form of oil from the tar sands of Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico, the equivalent of opening up an entire new Saudi Arabia's worth of dirty oil to the world? And will the president continue at his breakneck pace of giving out oil and gas permits on United States land, and specifically the issue of fracking for natural gas? In some cases, natural gas does give out less carbon emissions, but has many other environmental side effects, and is not the direction that we need to be going if we're trying to achieve carbon neutrality.
Agreed.
I would look for.
Agree. And in fact, the White House is already, interestingly enough, is tamping down some expectations on the left, pointing out that the president's going to continue some of the incentives that he's already given to renewable energy resources and industries, and that we shouldn't look for anything specifically bold or particularly bold from the president. But I would just point out that for the president merely to say this, for the president merely to say, you know what, we're going to do something on climate change, is bold and is courageous, because this means that his second term becomes judged in part by what he says in his inaugural address and what he also says perhaps in the first State of the Union. For the president to put down this marker as clearly as he did and to say that we will respond to the threat of climate change, that means that he is essentially raising the bar for himself on this issue. And just because of that, I think the president deserves enormous credit from everybody who was particularly skeptical that this administration was really committed to doing anything regarding climate change.